the conservatives are really they say that it's a step in the right direction, but now it's going to be their whole intention to say that Joe Biden was in some way involved in so-called, dirty business dealings that Hunter is alleged to have taken part in.
Hunter Biden has become the first child of a sitting US president to be criminally prosecuted after being charged with 3 counts of lying when buying a firearm. It could mean a courtroom drama playing out during the 2024 presidential campaign as Joe Biden seeks re-election in a likely rematch with Donald Trump, who is himself facing 4 upcoming criminal trials. Caitlin Doornbos is Washington, D.C. reporter for the New York Post.
So he's charged with these federal crimes for having a firearm while he was actively using drugs, and then also charges for lying about it on a form when he was registering himself to go and buy this handgun.
Okay, now he had initially reached some sort of deal in terms of the various indictments that were coming his way. Can you just explain what happened there and what has happened to that now?
Sure thing. There was a agreement that was put forward, and it encompassed the gun charges that had to do with the drugs. The prosecutors were going to go ahead and not prosecute the gun case, and instead they were going to have him plead guilty to some tax evasion crimes that he had been charged with as well. But the deal was largely seen as a sweetheart deal by a lot of conservatives, and also the judge didn't think that it was quite up to snuff. There was a fair amount of back deal bargains going on that made it seem like maybe this isn't the most straightforward deal possible. So that the judge essentially asked a bunch of questions of the defendant in that case, and it shot the deal, and it fell apart. So without that deal, Hunter wouldn't plead to the tax evasion charges, and without the plea, prosecutors went ahead and charged him with the gun charges as well.
Okay. To what extent is this politically motivated? And I hesitate to use that because that seems to be the only
Right.
question we ever ask at the moment when it comes to charges in various US cases. Of course, I'm thinking of Donald Trump, but put
Yes.
this one in its political context.
Yes, unfortunately, it certainly does play into a political context. Republicans on the right have been trying to pin anything they can connected with Hunter Biden to his father, obviously, our President Joe Biden. And so this latest case, the conservatives are really they say that it's a step in the right direction, but now it's going to be their whole intention to say that Joe Biden was in some way involved in so-called, dirty business dealings that Hunter is alleged to have taken part in. This is completely outside of the scope of this gun charge. The gun charge is really it's a very rarely used law that isn't enforced. I've actually never, prior to this case, I had never heard of it, and I had covered courts for a long time. So it's kind of like they've flung some charge at the wall, and now this one's sticking to Hunter. But now the Republicans in Congress are saying, okay, well, Biden doesn't have anything to do with that, but we think that he's involved in these shady business dealings, and they have initiated an impeachment inquiry. So basically, that's how they're going to investigate whether or not Joe was involved in the separate business dealings that Hunter was involved in, and if they can prove that, they think they can try to impeach him. But again, we have to look at the politics. Donald Trump was impeached twice. There's a good argument to say that that is politically motivated.
Indeed. I suppose one of the contrasts to draw between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, and at the times of their, impeachment or ramping up to impeachment, is it fair to say Donald Trump had a lot more energy to fight back on those sorts of politicized maneuvers than Joe Biden potentially will have?
That's a good point. But what I would say is Donald Trump will make money off of his crimes. Every time he's indicted, he goes up in the polls. When they finally took his mugshot down in Florida, he made millions of dollars selling merchandise with his mugshot on the face on merchandise.
Mm.
But Joe Biden isn't going to make money off of his son. Joe Biden isn't going to parade his son around and use that as a way to campaign. That's not Joe Biden's strategy. Joe Biden is kind of the old school politician that runs on his background and what he's done, and Donald Trump has that celebrity status that he can turn a bad thing into a good thing for himself.
That is Caitlin Doornbos, reporting from Washington, D.C. She works at the New York Post.